Scene 1 asterisk. It was the middle of autumn when the air started to taste like iron and dust. I had been driving west across Nevada. The kind of road trip people take when they're running from something but don't want to admit it. My car was old, the kind that hummed even when parked, and I had only enough cash left for gas and a cheap place to sleep. Asterisk. The sun had dropped behind the desert hills hours ago. The road stretched endlessly ahead, a ribbon of cracked asphalt swallowed by the night. I hadn't seen another car in almost an hour. No radio signal. No service. Just the engine, the wind, and the low hum of tires over gravel. Asterisk. When the first light appeared ahead, I thought it was a trick of exhaustion. But as I got closer, I realized it was a sign. A neon vacancy flickering red against the black sky. The letters sputtered in and out, half dead, like they were struggling to breathe. Beneath it, painted in chipped white letters, were the words, Desert View Motel. The building looked like something from a forgotten postcard. 1 floor. 7 rooms, all lined up in a row facing the highway. A rusted ice machine sat beside the office door, humming louder than the desert itself. Asterisk. I parked in front of the office and killed the engine. For a few seconds, I just sat there, letting the silence press against me. The desert at night isn't empty. It's full of things that don't move, but somehow make noise anyway. Wind through the brush, small stones shifting, the soft hiss of heat leaving the sand. Asterisk. Inside the office, a single ceiling fan turned lazily, its chain clicking each time it spun. Behind the counter sat a man in a brown flannel shirt, his head bent over a crossword puzzle. His hair was thin, his skin dry and weathered like paper left too long in the sun. Asterisk. He looked up slowly when I entered. His eyes were pale, the kind of pale that made you wonder if he saw too much or not enough. Asterisk. Need a room? He asked. Asterisk. Yeah, I said. Just for the night. Asterisk. He stared for a second too long before nodding. Got one open. Room 6. Asterisk. He slid a brass key across the counter. No key. Just a key, heavy, cold, with the number etched into the tag by hand. Asterisk. How much? I asked. Asterisk. 50, he said. Cash only. Asterisk. I paid and filled out a form that looked older than I was. The lines for phone number and license plate were faded to ghosts. Asterisk. The man's fingers brushed mine as he took the paper, and I noticed the faint tremor in his hand. Checkout's at 9, he said. If you hear anything strange tonight, just stay inside. Asterisk. I forced a laugh. Like what? He didn't laugh back. When I stepped outside, the air had gone colder. The sound of the highway was gone, like the world had muted itself the moment I arrived. Asterisk. Room 6 was near the end of the row. The light above the door buzzed weakly, surrounded by a halo of insects. The doorknob was loose, the paint on the door chipped down to gray wood. Asterisk. Inside, it smelled faintly of old smoke and cleaner, that mix motels always have. Like someone tried to erase time but couldn't. The bedspread was thin, patterned with faded flowers. The kind you only see in places that haven't changed in decades. Asterisk. There was a Bible on the nightstand, half covered in dust, and a small TV that looked like it might still have rabbiteer antennas somewhere in storage. Asterisk. I turned on the light, dropped my bag, and locked the door behind me. The silence was thick, like something alive was pressing against the walls. I tried the TV static, no signal. I turned it off again and sat on the edge of the bed. My phone still showed no service. I told myself it was fine. I'd crash for a few hours, leave before sunrise. Nothing more. At some point, I drifted off. I don't remember when exactly, but when I opened my eyes again, it wasn't because of a dream. It was because someone was walking outside my door. Slow steps. Gravel crunching. I froze. The clock on the wall read 2:43 a.m. The light outside my window flickered once, then went out completely. The footsteps stopped right outside. Then came a knock. Not loud. Just one. Then silence. I sat there, barely breathing, listening. The knock didn't come again. I waited maybe 5 minutes, maybe longer. Finally, I forced myself to peek through the curtains. The parking lot was empty. My car was there. No other vehicles. No lights, nothing. I let the curtain fall back. Maybe it was the wind. Maybe the guy from the office checking doors. That's what I told myself. I went to the bathroom to splash some water on my face. The tap coughed out brown for a second before it cleared. I looked at myself in the mirror, pale, tired. Maybe more scared than I wanted to admit. And that's when I noticed something in the reflection. Behind me, on the door, a single wet handprint. I turned fast. The door was locked. Still was, but the handprint was real. The shape smeared downward, like someone had pressed their palm there and slid slowly. The water was fresh, still dripping toward the floor. I checked the window, still locked. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but outside was worse. The desert was black, endless. So I sat awake until the first gray light of dawn crept through the blinds. When I finally stepped outside, the light above my room was still dead, but the one over room 5, the room next to mine, flickered on. Its door was open. Inside, I could see a bed stripped bare. No sheets. Just the mattress. Stained dark in the middle like someone had spilled oil or blood. I turned toward the office, heart pounding. The man was there again, sitting behind the counter. Crossword open like nothing had changed. I hesitated before speaking. Hey, someone was in my room last night. He didn't look up. You sure about that? Yes, I said. There was a handprint on my door. Now he looked up. His expression didn't change much, but something in his eyes went hollow. Which room you say again? 6. He nodded slowly. Thought I locked that one last week. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? He closed the crossword book and leaned back in his chair. Guy checked in. Couple nights ago. Said he just needed to rest. Never came back for his key. What happened to him? The old man looked out the window toward room 6. He checked in, he said quietly. But he never checked out.
Scene 2. The morning sun burned weakly through the dusty blinds, cutting lines of light across the motel room like long fingers trying to pry secrets from the shadows. I didn't sleep at all. Every creak of the old floorboards, every rustle outside made my heart race. The events from the previous night felt like a dream, except the handprint on the door said otherwise. A reminder that what had happened wasn't just my imagination. I dressed quickly, throwing on the jacket I'd worn on the drive-in, and stepped outside. The air was crisp, tinged with the dry scent of sand and dust. Room 6 looked ordinary in the daylight. The door was closed, the neon above flickering unevenly. But when I looked closer, I saw it. Faint scratches along the edge of the doorframe, like nails had dug into the wood. Fresh. The old man behind the counter didn't look at me as I came in. He sat with his hands folded, staring at nothing in particular, expression empty, like a mannequin in human disguise. "I need to check out," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't respond immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost reluctant. "You're not staying long, huh? Just one night? Last night was enough." He nodded slowly. "Good. Some people, they check in and never leave because they see things that stay with them. Places like this, they leave a mark." I nodded, though I didn't understand what he meant. I handed him the key. He took it with a faint smile, not lifting his gaze. As I got into my car and drove away, I tried to shake the memory of room 6, of the handprint, of the strange bed in room 5 stripped bare. The highway stretched endlessly, the desert open on both sides, pale and unwelcoming. The sun climbed higher, burning the shadows away, but not the unease. By the time I reached the next small town, it was early afternoon. I parked at a diner, the kind with chrome edges and a smell of fried eggs and coffee lingering in the air. I needed to think, to process what had happened. I ordered a coffee and sat near the window, eyes scanning the parking lot, half expecting someone to be standing behind my car. But there was nothing. The waitress, a young woman with bright hair and a cautious smile, refilled my cup. "Long drive?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, forcing a laugh. "Just trying to get somewhere safe for the night." She nodded. "Well, good luck with that. Some roads aren't kind after dark." I didn't ask her what she meant. I just sipped my coffee, feeling the warmth in my hands, and tried to convince myself that the night at Desert View Motel was over. That the handprint, the stripped bed, the pale eyes of the old man, it was all just coincidence. But coincidence doesn't leave scratches. I left the diner mid-afternoon, heading toward a small town farther west. By evening, the landscape had changed to rolling hills and sparse forests. The sun was sinking, painting everything gold and orange, but the beauty felt hollow. The motel, the desert, the handprint. It lingered in my mind, following me like a shadow. I found a cheap inn on the edge of town, the kind with a single receptionist behind glass and a smell of bleach that made the air feel sterile. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with glasses sliding down her nose, handed me a key without much conversation. Room 12. I climbed the stairs, bags heavy, heart still unsettled. Inside, the room was standard: bed, TV, dresser, and a small bathroom. Everything seemed ordinary. I unpacked quickly, avoiding the mirror on the dresser, covering it with the spare blanket I found in the closet. No reflection, no risk. At least that was the thought I clung to. Night fell. I tried to sleep, but my mind refused to rest. Every sound in the room, the HVAC unit, the faint traffic outside, the wind brushing the leaves, felt amplified. Then came the tapping. Soft, deliberate, one tap, then another. It came from the window. I froze. The window was closed, the curtains drawn. My reflection shouldn't exist there. And yet I swore I saw a dark figure, tall and thin, standing just behind the glass. Its head tilted unnaturally, eyes black, hollow, like pits leading nowhere. I wanted to look away, to convince myself it was exhaustion, hallucination, desert delirium. But I couldn't. Something in me, fear, curiosity, or perhaps the remnants of the night before, held my gaze. The figure leaned closer. Its hand pressed against the window from the outside, but the glass didn't bend, didn't crack. It was impossible. And yet, the pressure was real. A cold, penetrating weight that pressed against my chest and stomach. I backed away, fumbling for my phone. No signal, no Wi-Fi. The world outside this room had gone silent. Then a sound, a low, guttural humming, almost like a chant. It wasn't human, not language, just vibration. It reverberated in my skull, in my bones, in my chest. My heart thumped, ears ringing. The figure's hand began to slide along the window, leaving a streak of condensation or shadow that looked like a smear of black smoke. I grabbed the blanket from the dresser, shoving it against the glass. The streak paused, as if testing the barrier. I ran to the door, locked it, checked every window. Everything was secure, and yet I knew it wasn't gone. The weight, the presence, the humming. It lingered, coiling around my senses, pulling, watching, learning. Hours passed. I stayed crouched on the bed, blanket over my shoulders, refusing to look at the window. Sleep didn't come. Food didn't matter. Only the hum, the pressure, the memory of the Desert View Motel, all of it combined into a single thought. Wherever I went, whatever I did, this thing would follow. By dawn, the humming stopped. The first rays of light made the window look ordinary again. No figure, no hand, nothing but reflection. My own tired, pale face staring back. But the scratches on my mind remained. The scratches, the imprint of fear, the knowledge that whatever it was, it didn't need a motel room to reach me. All it needed was a glimpse, a reflection, a moment of attention. I packed quickly, checked out without speaking to the receptionist, and left town before breakfast was fully served. As I drove, I tried to rationalize. Maybe it was a trick of the night. Maybe my imagination ran wild after the desert heat and the endless lonely roads. Maybe. But then, as I rounded a curve near a small creek, my headlights caught something in the water. The reflection of a man. Tall, thin, head tilted unnaturally, eyes hollow and black. I slammed on the brakes. The car skidded on loose gravel. My heart leapt into my throat. I spun to check behind me. Nothing. The creek reflected only the night sky, clouds, and my headlights. Nothing else. Except in the moment I looked back at the road ahead, the reflection in the water remained. The figure lingered, just for a second longer than it should have, before melting into ripples. I pressed the accelerator hard. I drove without looking at the mirrors. I drove until the sun was fully up, the road empty, the fear temporarily buried under light. But I knew deep down that the moment night fell, the figure would return. It didn't matter where I was. It didn't matter if I avoided mirrors, windows, or water. It only needed a reflection, and once it learned me, it would follow.
In a small village, a cat named Whiskers discovered a magic fish in a pond. The fish promised 3 wishes in exchange for its freedom. Whiskers wished for endless fish, a cozy bed, and a bell that rang softly. The fish granted all 3 wishes and swam away, leaving Whiskers content and purring Icene. 3*. The following weeks were a blur of highways, motels, and gas stations. Every night, I slept lightly, always with one eye open. It didn't matter how far I drove, how many towns I passed, or how many hotels I checked into. The figure, the reflection, the presence, it was never gone. One night I pulled into a small town called Cedar Hollow. The place was sleepy, almost eerily quiet, with streets lined with shuttered shops and empty sidewalks. I found a motel on the outskirts. The kind that advertised no vacancy signs, yet somehow always had a room available for weary travelers. Room 7. I unpacked quickly, covering the single mirror with a thick towel. For the first few hours, nothing happened. I tried to eat, tried to drink coffee, tried to convince myself I was safe. Then, the tapping began. Soft, deliberate. 1 tap. Then another. I froze. The sound came from the bathroom. My hands trembled as I approached. I didn't want to look. didn't want to know what would greet me. Asterisk, the door was closed. I slowly cracked it open. The towel on the mirror had fallen to the floor. The glass was empty, smooth, reflecting only the room. Asterisk, I exhaled, thinking I had imagined it. Asterisk, but then, in the reflection, I saw it, the tall, thin figure, standing behind me. Head tilted, hollow eyes staring directly into mine. Its long fingers pressed lightly against the glass, and for a moment, the air around me felt like it was freezing. Asterisk, I stumbled back. My heart raced. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Asterisk, the figure didn't move. It just watched. And then, slowly, it raised a hand, as if beckoning me. Asterisk, I wanted to run. I wanted to flee the room, the motel, the town. But something in me, fear, stubbornness, or sheer defiance held me in place. Asterisk, I grabbed a chair and shoved it against the bathroom door. The figure didn't react. It remained in the mirror, patient, waiting. Asterisk, I sat on the bed, knees pulled to my chest, and watched the reflection. Time passed, hours, maybe. The humming started again, low at first, then rising, filling the room with vibrations that shook my teeth and rattled my bones. Asterisk, I realized something terrifying. The figure wasn't just a reflection. It was learning me. Every movement, every breath, every thought, I couldn't hide. It absorbed, memorized, and waited. And the more it learned, the more real it became. Asterisk, I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat. I didn't move. I just stared at the mirror, unwilling to look away, unwilling to give it more room to grow. Asterisk, when dawn finally came, the figure was gone. The mirror reflected only the room, but the sense of presence lingered. Every object, every corner, every shadow carried the memory of it. Asterisk, I left Cedar Hollow immediately. No breakfast. No words to the receptionist. Only the road ahead. Asterisk, days turned into weeks. I tried to find a place where it couldn't follow me, where reflections were minimal. I covered windows, avoided mirrors, stayed away from any puddle, any polished surface. But it was always there. In the rearview mirror, while driving, in the reflective chrome of a gas pump, in the dark windows of a shuttered store. Asterisk, one evening, I stopped at a small diner in a town that seemed ordinary. I sat in a booth near the back, trying not to look at the large window beside me. I needed food, needed warmth, needed to remind myself I was still alive. Then I saw it, its reflection in the glass, not behind me physically. The booth was empty, but in the reflection. Tall, thin, head tilted, black hollow eyes. And behind the figure, my own reflection sat slouched, exhausted. Terrified, I froze. I realized then that it didn't just follow me. It could manipulate reflections, create versions of me that it controlled, that it could trap. And if it learned enough, if I looked too long, it could replace me entirely. Asterisk, panic set in. I paid for my food and left, ignoring the waitress's curious glance. The rain had started outside, puddles forming on the asphalt. Every puddle reflected the same dark figure, closer now, stretching toward me. Asterisk, I ran, heart pounding. The figure in every reflection followed, silent, patient, relentless. Asterisk, by the time I reached my car, drenched and trembling. I knew something crucial. This wasn't just about mirrors anymore. It didn't need them. Any reflective surface, any shiny object could serve as a doorway. And the longer it steadied me, the stronger it became. I drove through the night, taking side roads, avoiding towns, avoiding streetlights that might catch my reflection. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it, watching me from the corner of my vision, in reflections that didn't exist. I realized then what I had to do. I couldn't run forever. I couldn't hide from windows, mirrors, puddles, chrome, or polished floors. I had to confront it. Not physically, not with force, but mentally, with focus, with will. I started planning. I would isolate it, force it into a controlled reflection, trap it somehow. I didn't know if it would work, but I had no other choice. That night, I rented the cheapest motel room I could find, far from any city lights. Covered every reflective surface I could find, except for the small mirror I set up intentionally, facing the bed. One mirror. One controlled reflection. The humming started almost immediately. Low, deep, vibrating through the air and into my bones. I watched the mirror. Slowly, the figure appeared, stretching, twisting, tilting its head, black eyes locked on mine. I didn't flinch. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Hours passed. The humming intensified. My hands shook. My chest ached. But I stayed. I stared. I realized something vital. Its power came from proximity. The longer it had access to my reflection, the stronger it became. But if I concentrated it into one controlled mirror, I could contain it. I could make it strain. And so I forced it. Focused every ounce of my attention on the single mirror. Its form flickered, unsteady. The humming grew louder, almost a scream, echoing inside my head. Its long fingers pressed harder against the glass. I held my ground. I repeated in my mind, over and over, "You are there. I am here, no more." The figure recoiled slightly, edges flickering like corrupted video. The reflection of my own terrified face mirrored inside the mirror, trapped, screaming silently. But I didn't look away. By dawn, the humming had stopped. The figure inside the mirror was still, almost inert. The edges of its form blurred, fading into darkness. I exhaled, shaking. The containment had worked, at least temporarily. I knew then, with absolute certainty, that this thing wasn't dead. It wasn't destroyed. It was patient, waiting. But I also knew that for the first time in weeks, I had control. I packed up, left the motel before anyone could see, careful to cover the mirror. The road stretched ahead, silent, empty. For now, I was free. But I also knew, deep down, that it was only a matter of time before it tried again. And when it did, I would be ready. Scene for the days after Cedar Hollow were a tense routine of avoidance and vigilance. Every reflective surface became a potential threat. Windows were covered, puddles avoided, mirrors either removed or draped. I stopped using my phone, except for emergencies. Every polished metal, every glossy surface. Every water reflection felt like a possible window for it to observe, to reach. Asterisk, even so, no matter how careful I was, the presence lingered. Subtle at first, a fleeting shadow at the corner of my vision, a glimmer in a store window. Then it escalated. Asterisk, one night, I stayed in a small motel on the outskirts of another town. The room was sparse, no mirrors, no glass surfaces, except the window, which I had covered with a thick curtain. I hoped isolation would keep it contained. I tried to sleep, but the humming began again, low, rhythmic, vibrating in my chest. Asterisk, I didn't move. I didn't look. I felt its presence pressing against me, heavier and more insistent than ever. Asterisk, minutes, or maybe hours, passed before I finally dared to peek. The curtain fluttered slightly, and I saw the tall, thin figure, head tilted, fingers stretched, standing behind the sheer fabric. Its hollow eyes were fixed on me. Asterisk, I froze. Every muscle tense. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Asterisk, then, a voice. Or perhaps just a vibration in the air. The same low hum, now forming words in a language I couldn't understand. It resonated in my chest, in my bones, making every breath painful. Asterisk, I knew then, it had learned patience. It had learned my patterns. Every fear, every thought I tried to hide, it already knew. And it was growing stronger. Asterisk, I realized I couldn't just avoid it anymore. Avoidance had failed. Running had failed, covering windows, hiding in motels, changing towns, all temporary solutions. I had to confront it. Asterisk, I began researching obsessively. Old folklore, occult articles, reports of haunted mirrors, even forums of people claiming similar experiences. A common thread emerged. Entities that learned through reflections could be contained, but only in controlled environments. Isolation and focus were key. Asterisk, I decided to build a containment setup. I removed every reflective surface from the room. Mirrors, metal objects, even polished furniture were covered or removed. Then, I placed a single mirror in the center of the room, isolated, surrounded by black cloth. I set up a recording system, so I could observe the mirror without looking directly into other reflections. Asterisk, that night, I sat in a chair facing the mirror. The humming began almost immediately. Slowly, the tall figure appeared, form flickering, edges unstable. Its head tilted, hollow eyes fixed on mine, fingers pressed against the glass. Asterisk, I didn't flinch. I didn't breathe. I let it see me. Asterisk, hours passed. The humming intensified, vibrating through my chest, rattling my teeth. My body shook, my mind screamed, but I stayed. I focused every ounce of my will on containment, repeating silently, "You are there, I am here. No more." Asterisk, its form wavered, flickering like a corrupted image. The pressure of its hand against the glass intensified, but it was confined, unable to extend beyond the isolated mirror. Asterisk, I realized then that its power relied on spreading through reflections. By concentrating it in one controlled mirror, I forced it to strain, to exhaust itself. Asterisk, I kept staring, unblinking, unwavering. Slowly, its edges blurred further. The humming grew into a scream, echoing inside the mirror, then abruptly stopped. Silence. The room was still. The mirror's surface reflected only the empty space. Asterisk, I exhaled, trembling, shaking from exhaustion. I had contained it for now, asterisk, but I knew the truth. It wasn't destroyed. It was patient, waiting, observing, learning, and one day it would try again. Asterisk, I packed up and left the motel, careful to secure the mirror. For the first time in weeks, I felt some measure of relief. But everywhere I went, in every shadow, in every reflective glimmer, I remained vigilant. Asterisk, the world looked normal. Streets, motels, diners, all ordinary. But I knew better. The entity was always there, just behind the surfaces, learning, waiting. And I knew that containment required constant vigilance. Any lapse, any careless glance at a reflection, could let it slip free again. Asterisk, the road stretched ahead, empty, silent. And I understood, with cold certainty, that my life would never be the same. Every reflective surface, every glass screen, every puddle was a doorway. And I would always be watching, always be aware. Asterisk, for now, I was free temporarily, but the figure, patient and unyielding, would never stop. Scene 5. After the motel incident, life became a careful, calculated routine. Every town I moved to, every apartment I rented, I meticulously chose with one criterion: minimal reflective surfaces. Windows were either tinted or permanently covered. Mirrors, even small ones, were either removed or draped in thick, black cloth. Polished furniture was wrapped or replaced with matte finishes. I stopped using my phone except for emergency calls, and I avoided public places where reflective surfaces could betray me. Asterisk, for months, this cautious life seemed to work. The figure did not appear, no humming echoed in my chest, and my dreams, once filled with the distorted hallway and hollow-eyed presence, became sparse. Still, I never truly relaxed. Every puddle after rain, every glossy car hood, every shop window was a potential portal. I had learned that patience was its greatest strength. It did not need to act immediately. It could wait silently until it found the perfect opportunity. Asterisk, one evening, after stocking up on groceries at a local convenience store, I walked back to my small apartment. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflective. Normally, I avoided puddles, but this time I glanced briefly at one near the curb. My stomach sank. For just a fraction of a second, the tall, thin figure appeared behind my reflection, its head tilted at that familiar, unnatural angle. Asterisk, I froze, my breath caught in my throat. The figure's hollow eyes seemed to pierce through the wet asphalt, and its long fingers reached out from the reflection, stretching toward me. My pulse thundered. My legs refused to move. The rainwater rippled as if it had a life of its own, carrying the entity closer with each small wave. Asterisk, I tore my gaze away and sprinted to my apartment, heart pounding so violently I feared it would burst. Inside, I immediately went to every reflective surface, covering, removing, and isolating. The pressure in the room was palpable, like the air itself was thickening, pressing down on my shoulders. I could feel its presence everywhere, waiting for any moment of weakness. Asterisk, that night, the humming returned, louder, more insistent. I tried to block it out, pulling blankets over my head, but it vibrated through the walls, through the floor, through my very bones. The entity's patience had turned into insistence. It was learning to adapt, finding ways to exist even in the smallest reflections. I realized that avoidance alone would no longer suffice. I needed a permanent solution, a way to contain it entirely. After days of research, I found references in obscure folklore about entities that traveled through mirrors and reflections. The only method described to truly neutralize them involved a controlled space, a containment room where the entity could be trapped, unable to spread. It required facing the entity directly, offering it your full attention while isolating it from all other reflective surfaces. I spent the next week preparing. I converted a small, empty room in my apartment into a containment chamber. Every window was covered with thick black cloth. All reflective surfaces were removed or covered. In the center of the room, I placed a single mirror on a reinforced pedestal, completely isolated. I set up a camera system to monitor the mirror without risking exposure to other reflections in the apartment. That night, I entered the chamber. The humming began almost immediately, low and insistent, vibrating through my chest. Slowly, the tall figure emerged from the mirror, taller and thinner than ever, its head tilted, hollow eyes locked on mine, long fingers pressing against the glass. I did not move. I did not flinch. I met its gaze. Every ounce of fear I had accumulated over the years, I channeled into a singular, unwavering focus: containment. I repeated silently, over and over, "You are there. I am here. No more. No more." The entity recoiled slightly at the words, its form flickering, edges wavering. The pressure of its hand against the mirror increased, but it could not escape the isolated space. Hours passed. The humming grew into a scream, shaking the walls and rattling my teeth. But I held firm, refusing to look away, refusing to break the focus. Slowly, the figure began to lose its shape. Its long fingers trembled, stretching unnaturally, its edges dissolving into flickers of black and shadow. The scream intensified for a moment, a final, violent howl, then abruptly stopped. Silence. The mirror reflected only the empty room, still and calm. I exhaled, shaking, exhausted beyond measure. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of relief. The entity was contained, dormant, trapped, but still aware. I understood then that this containment would require constant vigilance. Any lapse, any careless glance at a reflective surface, could allow it to slip free again. Life continued, cautious and calculated. I moved to a new town, far from my previous locations, seeking isolation. Every window remained covered. Mirrors were entirely absent. Technology was minimized. Even small puddles were avoided. I learned to live in a world of matte surfaces and shadows, hyper-aware of every potential reflective surface that could betray me. Years passed. I maintained strict routines, careful movement, constant awareness, and the knowledge that the entity remained trapped, patient, biding its time. Every reflective surface I encountered in daily life reminded me of the vigilance required. Its existence had taught me the fragility of perception, and the power of observation. Asterisk, even so, occasionally, fleeting glimpses reminded me that it was never gone. A passing reflection in a car window, the shimmer of a metallic object, the glint of water in a gutter. These moments made my chest tighten, my pulse spike, my mind scream with the awareness that the entity was still there, watching, learning, waiting. Asterisk, containment was temporary vigilance. Freedom was constant awareness. And I knew, deep in my bones, that someday it would test its prison again. But for now, I had survived. I had outlasted it. And the mirror, the shard, the entity, however patient it was, could not claim me again. Asterisk, the room was quiet. The mirror stood silently on its pedestal. I knew that its awareness remained, but as long as I maintained vigilance, it could not act. The weight of years of fear and trauma pressed down on me, but so did the quiet relief of survival. I had learned patience, endurance, and the art of containment. And in that quiet understanding, I realized that sometimes survival itself is victory. Scene 6 years passed, and life became a delicate balance between survival and vigilance. I moved multiple times, each new town chosen carefully to minimize reflective surfaces. Apartments with tinted windows, old wooden doors instead of glossy ones, matte furniture instead of polished pieces. Every choice was intentional. Mirrors were completely absent or wrapped in black cloth. Electronics were limited. Screens were turned off when not in use. Every puddle, every shiny car hood, every metallic object became a potential threat. I had learned that the entity's patience was infinite, and my carelessness could cost me everything. Asterisk, time did little to dull the memory of Beautude, of Red Hollow, or the motel nights when the humming echoed in my chest and the tall, thin figure pressed against the reflections. The trauma had settled into a quiet shadow that followed me wherever I went. Social gatherings became rare. I avoided places where reflective surfaces could reveal more than my own image. Friends grew distant as I declined invitations. Colleagues noticed my odd habits but never understood the depth of my fear. Asterisk, one night, years after the final containment, a package arrived at my door. There was no return address, no markings, just a small, black-wrapped rectangle. My hands froze before touching it. I recognized the weight, the texture, a shard of mirror. My pulse quickened as my mind raced. It could not be, I thought. I had contained it, isolated it, controlled it. Asterisk, I unwrapped the package slowly, hands trembling. The glass was black, smooth, flawless. At first it reflected nothing, but then, faintly, a shape emerged. The figure, it stood behind the reflection of my room, taller, thinner than ever, head tilted, fingers stretched toward me. Hollow eyes locked onto mine. And within that glass, I saw myself frozen, terrified, trapped. Every memory of Beautude, Red Hollow, the motel, and the nights of relentless fear was visible in that single shard. It had waited. It had learned patience. Asterisk, I knew the containment from years ago was no longer sufficient. I had to confront it directly. I prepared the apartment once again, covering every reflective surface, isolating the shard in a reinforced pedestal at the center of a dedicated room. I positioned myself so that only I faced the mirror. All else blocked or obscured. The humming began softly, then swelled into a deafening resonance, vibrating through the walls, my chest, my bones. The air grew icy. Shadows twisted unnaturally, moving as if alive. The entity reached toward me through the glass, pressing with immense force. I could feel its intent, its desire to reclaim what it had once learned, me. I stood firm, staring into its hollow eyes. I let it see every memory, every fear, every trauma it had caused, but I did not flinch. I repeated the mantra I had learned long ago. You are there. I am here. No more. No more. Its form wavered, flickering black shadows, shredding at the edges of its body. The humming became a roar, the pressure almost unbearable, but I remained unwavering. Hours passed. Its fingers trembled, reaching for me, then recoiling, as if each push into my reality burned it. Slowly the entity began to fade, withdrawing into the isolated shard. Its movements became erratic, fractured, unstable. The roar of its presence quieted to a distant echo. Finally, the shard settled. The reflection of the room became normal. The tall, thin figure was gone, contained, dormant, yet aware. The air warmed. Silence returned. I sank to the floor, shaking, drained beyond measure. The entity was not destroyed. It was trapped. I understood that it would remain so only as long as vigilance was maintained. Any lapse, any reflective surface left unchecked, could allow it to escape. Survival was no longer about movement or hiding. It was about constant awareness. Years stretched on. I adapted a life of careful routines. Windows remained covered. Mirrors were non-existent. Electronics were minimal, used sparingly. Even the smallest puddle was a potential doorway. I learned to live with the constant, quiet knowledge that the entity existed, patient and unyielding. Every shadow, every reflective surface, every shimmer reminded me of its presence. Yet, even in this cautious existence, I sometimes glimpsed its patience in subtle ways. A reflection in a darkened shop window, the fleeting gleam of water in the gutter, the shimmer of a metal railing, each sent a shiver down my spine. It was contained, yes, but it was immortal, infinitely patient, and aware. I realized something profound. The entity could never be destroyed. It would wait, bide its time, and observe the world through reflections wherever it could. The containment I had established was the only barrier between its influence and my life. Even now, when I glance at a puddle after rain, when I see a faint reflection in a dark window, or when a glint of polished metal catches my eye, I feel it watching, patient, waiting. But I also feel control. The containment works. I endure. I survive. I have lived cautiously for years, adapting my life to ensure it never escapes. And in that careful vigilance, I have found a fragile sense of peace. I understand that I am not free from fear, not free from the entity's presence. But I have survived. I have faced it. I have contained it. And I know this. The entity is immortal, patient, unyielding, but it cannot act without an opportunity. As long as I remain vigilant, it remains trapped. It waits, yes, but it does not win. Asterisk survival, after all, is its own victory. Asterisk the mirror shard sits on its pedestal in the isolated room, dormant but aware. Every day, every action, every choice is a testament to the careful life I lead. I have survived, and for now, that is enough. But the reflection will always exist, and one day, it may find someone else.